Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk. We're, of course, on Devil's Advocate today, talking all things Manchester United. And we were just saying off stream there that we all thought we were going to get a quiet World Cup and get to enjoy the World Cup. But no, Man United decided to rear its head again. Two blockbuster bits of news in the last 48 hours. Of course, Cristiano Ronaldo leaving the club by mutual consent, or he was fired, or something like that. He's gone. Doesn't matter. Man United get what they want. Ronaldo has got what he wants. But the biggest bit of news, and the reason that we are sat here today with financial football expert Kieran Maguire, is Manchester United. There seems to be we're up for sale. Manchester United are up for sale finally for the first time since 2005. It looks like the Glazers have finally succumbed to sort of the inevitable. They put out a statement to say they're looking around for different financial opportunities and things like that, but they did say they would be open to a standard sale, a full sale. Joining me today, as I said, is Kieran Maguire and Keane as well. How are you guys doing today?
All good. Yeah, when the story broke yesterday, it meant that I missed the Japan versus Germany game, so I was absolutely gutted.
It was a great game as well.
Yes.
It was brilliant. Perfect. So before we go to Kieran and get the ins and outs and facts and figures and everything for that, Kieran, I'm going to ask you, what was your initial reaction when the news broke? Obviously, it was a couple hours after the Ronaldo news broke. I remember when I first saw it, I was like, nah, it's a hoax. What was your sort of reaction initially? And then we'll go to Kieran and get the nitty-gritty and sort of the details that me and you maybe aren't qualified enough to tell everyone what's going on.
Yeah, look, I think when the news broke, obviously initially of Ronaldo leaving, there was kind of a bittersweet situation, obviously, because it was returned. It didn't go the way we wanted it to go. It would have been ideal for him to see Ronaldo come back and win a trophy or two, and obviously see out his career at the club. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. It was a bit of a sad evening, and then the news breaks still about the club potentially is going to be up for sale. That obviously Sky News came out with the report, and then obviously the statement came out a few hours later, and then it gave me some happiness, a bit of light at the end of the tunnel potentially. And yeah, just I'm hoping, I'm very hopeful now that this sale can come to fruition, and we can kind of have a brighter future at the football club, and there's a lot less, I suppose, negativity surrounding the ownership.
Yeah, no, I agree, and like I say, it's like the first bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, we kind of saw it at points last year. There was rumours and things like that, but it's the first real bit of light as Manchester United fans that we've seen in a long time that we might get out of this. Kieran, coming to you because you're the guy in the know. A lot of interviews yesterday, as you said, with different people trying to sort all this. You have been a busy man. Has this been something in the works for a long time? Obviously, it's not going to be a knee-jerk decision, but how long has this actually been something that Manchester United have been thinking about, and how long have these feelers been put out to people like the Rain Group and things like that a sale is a potential move?
The announcement yesterday isn't point zero. There is no doubt that there'd already been talks between Manchester United, investment banks, and the Rain Group, who are effectively acting as a glorified estate agent. I think this probably all started when Chelsea was sold for 2.5 billion, because that made people sit up who were other owners, especially if we think of them as the Super League club owners. The Chelsea was a club in crisis. Its owner, who was effectively treating it as a bank of mum and dad club, had been subsidising Chelsea £900,000 a week for 19 years, and yet they still managed to get that price of 2.5 billion as a distressed asset of somebody who had all of the other assets in being frozen by the government. So that meant, well, if Chelsea are worth 2.5 billion, the likes of FSG at Liverpool and others thinking, well, we're a bigger club than Chelsea, we can get more money. FSG paid 300 million to buy Liverpool. They announced a similar pronouncement to what we've seen from the Glazers 2 weeks ago. One would expect to have seen a lot of interest in Liverpool, and some of the people that are interested in buying Liverpool will have said, well, hold on, they're not the only club that have American owners that we'd be interested in buying. And the chances are there'll be more people knocking at the door, making discreet inquiries. And I suspect the weight of those inquiries, Chelsea had over 200 bids earlier this year. I think the number of those inquiries has made the Glazers think, A, this potential sale has got some genuine legs, and B, given the number of people who are likely to be interested, we could effectively auction the club off and we could make a huge amount of money, and then we could spend the rest of our lives not being abused on social media or doorstepped by reporters. So our lives would be a lot easier, and we'll be walking away with probably $500 million each as a bare minimum.
Yeah, and Kieran, just kind of on that, like the fact that the Chelsea sale with Todd Bowley taking over, and then subsequently a couple of months later with FSG potentially looking for additional investment as well on the Liverpool side. Is this something that maybe if this situation didn't happen, do you think the Glazers might have maybe held back looking for this additional investment, or has the effect of the COVID pandemic, obviously sponsors potentially pulling from the football club as well? Do you think this is maybe something that could be brewing for quite some time?
Not necessarily, because if we listen to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments as recently as August, he was saying, well, I have spoken to the Glazers over the course of the summer, and I've been knocked back. Now, why would he say that under those circumstances? He's not going to do anything in their interests. He's a very smart guy in his own right. So I suspect that the Chelsea issue perhaps got them thinking a little bit, and what they've seen happen at Liverpool has accelerated the decision. If neither of those deals had gone through, I suspect we'd be still sitting moaning about the Glazers and saying, there's still a hole in the roof at Old Trafford. Toilets are too small. The concession, the catering's awful, and we're being treated, like sheep for our loyalty.
No, that's fair enough. I do want to ask as well. I saw it being described. I wonder if you agree with this statement. I saw the asset of Manchester United being described as a unicorn in terms of like what's on the market. It's a once in a lifetime sort of opportunity for someone to own this club. Do you agree with that statement? And are we underestimating just how much interest this is going to gain? It's not just going to be another American businessman. It's going to be people all over, different consortiums and things like that are going to be interested, and potentially even global brands as well.
Yeah, I think traditional investors, they can invest in 1,001 different companies. If you are a person which contributes towards private equity, the chances are that you are either a multi-millionaire or a billionaire at the very least, because that's what private equity does. It looks after the money of the rich and famous. And you've already got the trappings of wealth. You've got the fastest car, you've got the yacht, the helicopter, the island, the glamorous partner, everything you'd want as a rich person. But in the people that you're hanging out with, they've all got the same. So what makes you stand out? And this is where Manchester United comes in as a unicorn. There is only one Manchester United. There is only one Liverpool. There's very few. And if you say, I am the owner of Manchester United or Liverpool, we've got a match next Saturday. It's my club. I've got a couple of spare seats in the director's box. Fancy coming along? Can you imagine the credibility you've got in that circle of ridiculously wealthy, incredibly arrogant individuals? And then they go, oh, okay, right, okay. Do you want to see my new helicopter? No. You got Manchester United. Go. You've won. You've won the Billionaires Club prize, and I think that would help the Glazers in terms of selling the club and generating a high price for it, because they are going to get some of the other traditional investors involved and these people as well who are looking for what we refer to as a trophy asset.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the great thing about it is the Glazers effectively can let them outbid each other, as much what happened with the Chelsea situation. Obviously, that was dealt a bit more by third parties and things like that, because Abramovich couldn't physically get involved. But I suppose that they're going to be able to sort of big up the price against each other, and that could see what ridiculous amounts of money. I've seen some people even say that it might go for nearly double Chelsea, which would be crazy. Is that a possibility, or is it going to fall around sort of the 5.5-6 billion mark? It seems to be the more pulled back approach.
The story that Chelsea went for 4.25 billion is actually a myth. Clearlake paid 2.5 billion for the club, and then they said over the course of the next 10 years we're going to spend a further 1.75 on infrastructure. So I think we've got to use that 2.5 as a base price. Are Manchester United twice as big as Chelsea as a brand? I think it's arguable one way or the other. Chelsea are pretty big. I'm quite surprised if I say anything. As a Brighton fan, I'm not keen on Chelsea. If I put anything out on social media, it's always intriguing the amount of abuse that I get, not from UK-based Chelsea fans, because they know what terrace banter is all about, but for fans from elsewhere, it's all very personal stuff. So Chelsea do have a pretty big international fan base. Turning that into is always going to be a challenge. But I think 5 billion would be a really good price, given that it was Manchester United was trading on the stock market as early as Monday at a figure of around about just over 2. But we've already seen a 47% increase in the share price this week. So if it had a heads up on Monday and bought in, boys, you'd be looking at a pretty good return almost instantly. I think we'll just have to wait and see in terms of the price. If I was Newcastle's owners, I would be grinning from ear to ear. They bought Newcastle for 300 million 13 months ago, and Newcastle above Manchester United in the table, and they've got owners who seem to be not just making decisions, but they seem to be getting the decisions right to date.
No, that's a very fair point. And like you say, they're in that one club city. They're able to sort of build it from the ground up for a price that's not really comparable to what's going to be paid for Manchester United or Liverpool or what was paid for Chelsea. Keen, coming back to the football side of things, what do you think the impact in terms of sort of investment into the squad going maybe for this might be the last 2 transfer windows that we have under the Glazers? Can we see them potentially pull back further funding? Do you think the squad will just be left much as Mike Ashley did towards his end of his tenure? He just sort of left it and was like, well, I'm not spending more money on it because I'm selling it up. So could you see the football side of things actually regress almost? A sort of short-term pain for long-term gain?
Potentially, yeah. Like if the club's up for sale, then potentially they may not. May not invest in the football club. I think you always have to look at like the investment from the Glazers. They've never invested anything into Manchester United. It's always been from the club's pocket, essentially. But like it's a weird one because Ronaldo has left the club. We do need to invest in the forward in January if we're to finish in the top 4. I think that's very evident. Because like Martial has injury problems and Rick Rashford is more of a left winger than he is a striker. So from that point of view, do I see him investing big money in a striker? No, in January or even the summer. I think we may get another Edison Cavani-esque Odi Nagalo short-term option. In that regard, I think that's probably what's going to happen in January. Now it's not something what people listening to this would want to hear, but that's my gut feeling as to what will probably happen. It'll be a stopgap kind of, I suppose, investment before obviously the potential new owners come in. But I think, look, if Ten Hag can get a striker in of a decent standard and they can stay fit and they can score, 10 to 15 goals, all competitions, we might be okay in terms of the top 4, because Bruno Fernandes is going to have a much more free role without Cristiano in the team anyway. So that'd be my point of view on that.
No, that's fair. And Alex, I agree with you. I think it'll be sort of short-term pain for long-term gain. Speaking of the long-term game, Kieran, what would you say would be a reasonable amount of time for Man United fans to expect this to be done if they were to find a right suitor, or will they already have sort of people in mind that they're more like they'll know obviously who are the serious bidders that are going to bid ridiculous amounts of money and who are the more sort of scaled back ones? Will the Glazers be having that fed to them constantly, and will they know, even in sort of 6 to 8 months' time, who's going to be the next owner of Manchester United, or is it going to be a longer thought out process because of the money involved, because of the debt heaped on the club, and just the current financial situation as well?
Well, the one thing that all investors dislike and all markets dislike is uncertainty. So therefore, the longer it drags on, the more aggravation that causes. The Rain Group will be already going through its index of potential bidders. Then there will be a process of narrowing those down. Then effectively it will be a case of saying to the Glazers, these are the offers. Do you have any objections to any of the potential owners? The chances are the Glazers will say no, because the Glazers will just focus on the value of the bid. And then what's likely to happen is you'll say, well, we've narrowed it down to 3 or 4. You either have an auction over a period of time, or we have a sealed bid deadline. And you've got to put down a deposit, which you'll get back if you can prove proof of funds. You've got access to the data room. You've got access to all of your due diligence as a potential buyer. If I was a prospective new owner, I would want to be in effectively by the end of the season, because that allows you to have your strategic approach to what's going to happen in 23-24. By then we will know whether or not Manchester United are in the Champions League. You get about £4.50, £4.70 in the Champions League for every pound that you get from the Europa League. So going back to your previous discussion, there's actually a case for saying that Manchester United should sign a striker in January, because if they can sell a club as a top 4 entity, and that will also help in terms of your 10-year UEFA coefficient, then that enhances the value. And remember, the money's not coming from the Glazers. We know that. Does Manchester United have borrowing facilities? Yes, it does. And also, we take into consideration that all deals are done on credit. And in respect of Manchester United, they are exactly the same as other clubs, and the amount that they owe on credit for outstanding transfers is it's pretty. I think it's close to 200 million. So it's a substantial sum of money, and that's the way the market operates. So even if you sign a 60 million pound striker, the chances are you might just be costing you 20 million, and then it's the new owner's problem. It could be that there are discussions and the club's open about its retention policy, but I don't rule anything out in January.
I think that's good news. I mean, you're quite happy with that. If, like you say, I didn't realise it was that sort of big a difference between sort of marketing as a Europa League club to a Champions League club. So at the end of the season, because of the uncertainty and things like that, you think the end of the season is a genuine possibility then that there could be new owners in by May, June?
Yeah. The wheels of the mergers and acquisition industry can rotate extremely quickly, because if we get a serious bid, then both the selling party and the buying party employs an army of accountants and lawyers and bankers to try to get the deal over the line. Because if I want to buy your house, I want to move in straight as I can, and then I want to upgrade that bedroom. I want to stick a swimming pool in the back of it. I want to build a snooker room, whatever it's going to be. But I don't want to be thinking about it for 18 months, because the world will change. If you think about the world which we existed in 3 years ago, pre-COVID, pre-Ukraine war, any prospective buyer doesn't want that degree of, there could be some other seismic shocks. We've had Super League in that last 3 years as well, from a football point of view. So the quicker the deal is in the best interests of the buyer. It's simply a case of finding a buyer who's willing to come up with a price which is acceptable to the Glazers.
Oh, that's great news then. I read when it was sort of first looked at, I was like, it could be another 12, sort of 18 months. But as you say, that they don't want uncertainty. They want things to be guaranteed. And like you say as well, Glazers only want the most money. They're not greatly bothered whether or not it goes to someone that's going to treat the club right, because they've not they've not done it for so long. No, that's great. Also, you say obviously about owning other clubs, transfer fees and things like that. Is that something again that's sorted out with the buyer? Will a buyer want to come in and just have a clean slate, no debt to other clubs, no debt to banks? Would they want just a fat zero? And because we all know Manchester United is big enough to run itself with the money made and things like that. It doesn't need to be debting itself. Is that something that prospective buyers also look at? Is the debt on the club going to be a sticking point for people buying it? Or do you think just because of it's Manchester United, do we think that it's just going to be, we'll pay what we need because the growth is so great?
The amounts owing to the banks is more of an issue for the banks because they don't, what they do is that they effectively credit check the Glazers and they think, okay, this is where we rank them in terms of their credit worthiness. Now, if it was us three bidding for United and that was accepted, they might say, well, hold on, these look like a bunch of cowboys. We're no longer willing to lend 600 million to them. So there is something called a change of control clause, which exists in all corporate takeovers, which would allow the banks to say, we demand repayment or we are happy. So that will be a separate issue, but it won't be a problem. It will not stop the deal going through. With regards to football transfer debt, because of the rules of both FIFA and UEFA, football transfer debts have to be paid on the due dates. And if that's not the case, then UEFA or FIFA can rule against the club. And we've seen clubs have been fined, have had transfer bans, wage caps. So that won't be an issue. Manchester United are good for it. It's a cash generating cow. We know that. So I don't see that having any issue as far as the new owners is concerned. They might end up paying a bit less for the club because they say, well, if we're inheriting a club with £200 million worth of debt, we're going to knock £200 million off the asking price. In exactly the same way is if you're buying a car and it's got two bald tires, you go, well, I'm going to have to replace two tires. I'm going to knock it off what I was going to pay to you because it's going to cost me money. So there'll be a little bit of to and fro, but it won't be a challenge.
Great. Well, Kieran, we're going to let you go anyway, because I understand you do have a radio interview to do. Obviously, make sure everyone follows Kieran on Twitter, especially if you're a Man United fan over the next few months. It's going to be exciting. And I'm sure if you're listening to radio or something like that, you will see Kieran again. Thank you very much for coming on today, Kieran.
Thanks for the invite, lads, and enjoy the rest of the World Cup. A quiet World Cup, of course.
You too.
We'll try anyway with what's left in case there's any more United stories in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Hopefully it just goes quiet now.
Thanks very much, everyone, for watching as well. Make sure to smash like the video, do subscribe, and as always, we do appreciate your support, and we will be live later on to discuss further Manchester United news. But until then, guys, thanks very much, and we'll see you later.